bring some understanding here today. Oh, oh, oh. Pick it loud and pick it sound. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me. You can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Ooh. Right on, right on. Right on. Right on.
Good afternoon and welcome to all. My name is Dr. Frederick Gooding Jr., aka Dr. G, and I would simply like to welcome you as we would like to proceed down the path of reconciliation. But before we begin any further, we would like to respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose homeland our university is located. Once again, welcome and greetings to another edition of Race and Reconciliation at Work. And so the goal of RRI, or the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, is to fulfill the Chancellor and Board of Trustees' charge of studying TCU's relationship with slavery, racism, and the Confederacy. While the first year of our research focuses necessarily upon Black Americans, this is merely the first step of as many as additional identities and histories of our TC community must and will be explored in subsequent years. Again, by way of clarification, the RRI is an academically based, historically focused initiative designed to investigate and document TCU's history. We plan to share first year results on April 21st, 2021. By all means, look for it, check into our website for more details, but we're billing this day as Reconciliation Day as we're looking to come together so we can move forward together. Any questions regarding matters outside of our historical research-based focus, we will simply redirect them to the appropriate parties as we are looking to still stay in contact and stay in communication. And therefore, that's the reason why we're here. We are excited to continue our efforts to promote community through opportunities like these. And so without any further ado, I would like to call one of our freedom fighters on campus, Dr. Trung Nguyen, who will introduce our guest speaker for today, who will hold court and hopefully expose us to some ideas that will help us as we journey down the path of reconciliation. Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Dr. G. And as this topic is unraveled today, it's personally important to me to recognize the violence that has increased in our Asian communities in the last year and as recent as this week. And so with that in mind, it's also important for me to recognize how that has impacted the Asian community. And so that's why it's such an important topic for me today, and such an honor for me today to acknowledge and recognize and introduce Dr. Anh Nguyen, who joins us from the University of Houston. He's been there since 2016. And before that, he taught 3 years in the Ethnic Studies program at Northern Arizona University. At the University of Houston, he creates and offers multiple courses of Asian American histories and cultures, including courses on Asian American cinema and Asian Americans in media. Dr. Nguyen's research interests focus on Asian American immigration, transnationalism, globalization, and racial relations. Some of his works have been published on flagship outlets such as the Journal of Vietnamese Studies and Diaspora, a Journal of Transnational Studies. So please join me in welcoming Dr. An Nguyen.
Hello. Thank you very much, Dr. G and Dr. Chung Nguyen. It's my honor to be with you guys here today in this special time. Like Dr. Chung Nguyen just said, it's been a burning questions for us, the entire nation, especially for the Asian American community in this country, with the surprisingly, but not surprisingly, increasing rate of hate crimes toward the Asian American people in this country. So it's so well timed and great timing for me to have the honor to deliver this talk with the audience of the University TCU. I will continue to my talk right now, and the purpose of this talk is to investigate and to demystify the constructions or projections of the Asian American people as the model minority. In order to do so, I'm going to provide a brief overview of how the myth was created and what's behind, what besides the myth, how we as Asian American in films and media combat and resist such wrongful and misleading projection and take control of our presentation in American Hollywood film most of the time. So let me start my PowerPoint here. And all right. So am I on? Am I in? Dr. G, can you confirm that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll have 35-minute presentation. I'll try to go really fast so that we can have more time for question and answer. The title of this talk, as you can see, demystifying Asian American representation in film. So technically, this is an overview of the racialization, stereotype, appropriation, politicization, erasure of the Asian American history and identity, and how we resist and empower ourselves in filmmaking. As some of you might have heard about the definition of Asian Americans in this country through the histories of US making as a nation, started with the early arrival of Chinese workers who came at the second half of the 19th century working in California. There were in American popular culture at the time, there were 3 or 4 ways that the popular cultures defined the look or the faces of the Chinese people at the time. It was the coolie, the Jalapuro, the model minority, and the Gok. Now, for more than 100 years, technically, these are the 3 or 4 representations that we see very prevalent in Hollywood film industries, right? And I'm going to go through this kind of histories of the making of our identity. The early Chinese workers coming to America after the finding of gold in California, right, 1849. So these are early 49ers went to America with their gold mountain dreams. Most of them wanted to make a couple of quick bucks and return home. These are people gradually found more jobs after gold ran out in California by seeking job in the newly constructed project of the U.S. Transcontinental Railroad system. Right? The Chinese coming to this country were first welcomed by the California people because they needed cheap labor. But gradually, as the job became scarce and the tensions became higher, racialization of the Chinese people began with more hate crimes began in the state of California and then spread across the West Coast and the Southwest. The depiction of the Chinese or the Chinaman or the Chink at the second half of the 19th century, and even the early at the turn of the 20th century, can be summed up as the coolie and the deviant. The coolie is a very popular concept of the West looking at Asian people, especially the Chinese. The Chinese were considered as the cheapest and the most expendable workforce. They was thought to be slaved. The term coolies technically means slave, even though they was not. They came here to work as the free workers, and even though they was oppressed, exploited, they was free. But in the perceptions of the Western mindset, people from the East are considered to be slaves in the United States. So if you look at films during these times, you will see the depictions of the Chinese, mostly men, because Chinese workers were not allowed to bring the families with them. So most Chinese living in America and in California at the time was male. In Chinatown, in San Francisco, for example, it was a colony of bachelors, wherein you have hundreds, sometimes up to thousands of Chinese males, ranging from the age of 13 to the age of 75, living together in their Chinatown. They was not allowed to live with white folks in the city, and they was not allowed to mingle with them either. So the faces of the coolies were very much insignificant, unrecognizable, worthless, expendable face. We all look alike. This is where the term "they all look alike" started, right? Because we lived together with our women. Remember, there was less than 5,000 Chinese women in the entire history until of the Chinese people living in America. Until the time of the 1882 Chinese exclusion living in here, and the majority was prostitutes. Many of them was imported, that's the term they use, but kidnapped and sold into prostitution in America. So the Asian male body was looked at as a sign of unidentifiable third others. We was not considered as a male, we was not considered as women. We looked funnily in the eyes of the white man, right? Chinese workers at the time was keeping their ponytail, their pigtails. They were dressing up in the baggy pants. They were wearing cone hat. Most of them, after working on the railroad, had to resort to the job that male Americans did not design. For example, laundromat, or working as a cook, or working as a servant. And because we was living alone, we was not having a family with us. We was living together in colony, and the way we look gave the American, and it was spread in American popular cultures, and we don't really belong to any sex. We are the third other. And because of that, the ideas that Asian male bodies is a sign of also the wrongful sexual orientation already started at that time. The Asian women, on the other hand, also considered to be a sexualized and a disease transmitters, which the Chinese brothels created across the country. And even though they was prostitutes, they were discriminated against just like their male partners. Chinese brothels, for example, was not allowed to establish inside within the city limit of San Francisco. They was demanded to be relocated outside. Chinese women was nothing but the disease transmitters. That's the concept of this later called the visa, the sexual object to the Western man. Then very soon, in cinema, I'm sorry, let me go back to this one. This is very interesting film that if some of you have seen this one, it's a very old one. It is the film, the series Bonanza, and it had like 16 seasons that run from 1959 to 1973. The man you see in here dressing up in the Chinese dress, his name is actor Victor St. John. And in this film, he acted a Hobson. Hobson is a Chinese reliant, a funny, a laughing stock, a servant, and a sexless image of the Chinese man who was created to amuse the family and worked both as a servant and as a baboon for the family, right? In the history of Hollywood movies, we all know that there are all kind of facing or color facings for a group of people of color. Right? You have blackface for black folks. You have brown face for Latino folks. You have red face, so Native American, and of course you have yellow face for Asian and Asian Americans, right? The intention of yellow facing and the technique is to monstralize, to demonize, to turn the subject of Asian man and woman too into a non-human subject, right? The look give you the creepy and scary and the funny and the fearsome feeling towards this kind of a strange creatures coming from the Far East, invading, you know, the newly created land, the Eden Garden of California. It's a very common technique, you know, that turned Asian people into monstrous and hideous artists, right? There are two films that I would like to, two series of films that I would like to introduce in here for a few of you who might not have seen them. Dr. Fu Manchu is perhaps the most damaging and the most menacing cultural product that Hollywood films created and had a long-lasting effect, negative effect on Asian Americans. Dr. Fu Manchu represents the threat of the outside Oriental to the Western civilization. And together with him, Dr. Fu Manchu will bring the destruction to the nation, to the family, and to the American identity. At that time, it was the WASP, or we call it WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? Dr. Fu Manchu started as a film in 1923, and it ran until 1980s. There were multiple artists and actresses acted in this film. Two very famous actors that we know is the Warner Allen, the one you saw in the introduction, and then the one that you are looking at right now on the screen is Boris Karloff. Now, Warner Allen, he was a sweetly born American actor who claimed himself of the Mongolia descent, but there was no proof for that. He also played in the next one I'm going to talk about in Charlie Chan, right? Boris Karloff is a British American, a British turned Americans, let me put it that way. The funny thing is that the two of these actors, they tend to act in other monster movies too. Boris Karloff is very famous for playing Dracula, Count Dracula, right? If you look at the face, the famous Fu Manchu mustache, Manchurian mustache, that's what they call, and the slanted eyes and the sinister looks on his face. Dr. Fu Manchu is no longer a coolie or a deviant. He represents a yellow period. Why? He's extremely smart. He's extremely well educated. And this is not Oriental educated. We are talking about top degrees from the top institution from the United States of America and England. He claims different institutions every time, but it have Harvard, Chris College, and all these fancy ones. He is a medical doctor, but he's also a doctor of philosophy. His utmost goal is to destroy the Western civilization. And he's probably one of the most famous sayings to be that if you want the white woman in the film The Master of Fu Manchu, and this is not a direct quote, but by paraphrase, go to the West, destroy the West, kill their men, and take their women, right? The yellow periods were the dangerous. because we are, as American, white American this time, coping with now a very sinister, very dangerous enemies from the East. They're not only they are large in numbers, but they're also very well educated and very dangerous, right? Similarly, we have Charlie Chan. Charlie Chan is also a very popular and very famous TV show and film series that lasted from 1931 to 1938, which won Olen. And after Olen completed the 16 films and he passed away, several others actors, also white actors, also donned the yellow face and acted on this film, right? There was dozens of film and TV shows after that. Charlie Chan was less sinister than Dr. Fu Manchu, but because it's yellow facing stuff, he is also very dangerous because he's not the outsider. Set in Hawaii, he's one of us. He's smart, he's a silent, he looks humble, but he has something inside that none of us as American, the true American, here is white American, could trust him. He is the enemy inside, right? They are what we call Oriental superior inferiors. They are inferior race, but they're superior than other races, and sometimes superior than the average American. And that makes them extremely dangerous. In the second half of the 20th centuries, with the Cold War politics and the civil rights movements, there was a time that was time for the so-called moral minorities to raise up and admit. We all know that the term moral minorities was created by the sociologist William Peterson, who in 1966, he wrote a piece published in New York Times called Success Story, Japanese American Style, in which he exalted the successes of the Japanese American people, saying things like, you know, even though we betray them, we put them down a little bit, but they suck it up to it and they never complain about that. They just pick up and they really pull themselves up with their own shoestrings, right? The image or the theories of the moral minorities, and even nowadays, unfortunately, a lot of us in the Asian medical community, we still embracing it. We still think that is a great way, a great compliment toward us. It's actually extremely dangerous, extremely menacing. Set during the Cold War and during the civil rights movement, the moral minorities, technically an effort of the US popular cultures to prove that the Asian people are the domesticated orientations. We can use them to combat the three dangerous threats to the American society, right? The red menace at the time was communism. The black menace at the time was civil rights movement leaders and participants, and the white menace, who at the time was considered dangerous too, with the hippie movement, with the rise of the LGBTQ community. All these are things threaten what we hold here to our American cultures and values, which is the Christian ethos, right? The moral minority. 1 year later, there was another piece written the same about another group, the Chinese American. This, you know, also in the New York Times title. Now it's turn for the Chinese to become the moral minority. Why is it dangerous? It is dangerous because it wrongfully and incorrectly proved that the United States of America, despite we have some problem, but we are such a wonderful country that everybody have an opportunity in here, even and including the least designed group of people, right? And the Asian people coming to this country, they really self-realize. They become so successful. They become successful more, not only more than other group of people of color, but they even become more successful than white. right? By saying that, apart from the political intentions, another intentions of the model minorities to downplay and to vilify the effort and the goals of the civil rights movement, right? Look at all these good Japanese, good Chinese, they care about themselves, their family bound, they are Christians, of course, at the time. They are doing desirable job, their children are going to top school in the country, unlike the other very destructive races and ethnic groups who the only job they did is to riot and to destroy the good society of America, right? And another reason why white media and film at the time wanted to promote this kind of image, because again, it's a propaganda. It proved that this is what United States of America about. We deserve to be the leader of the free world, because more than anybody else, we are the beacon of hope and the land of equal opportunities. We are so good that even the people who are oppressed, they try to come to this country. And this, remember that this time, 1965, the Immigration Act, where the first time in the history of the United States of America, Asian people were allowed to migrate to this country equally to other groups of people around the world. In the pictures you can see here is also the very interesting one. The man here is Stephen Park, and he plays a role of a wimpy businessman in the film Fargo in 1996. We'll talk a little bit more about that film later. The last the presentation or projection of the Asian people in this country, or Asian Americans, is the group, for the making of the group. After the fall of Saigon and the end of the Vietnam War, there were influx of Indo-Chinese refugees coming from Indochina and Southeast Asia, right? You have the Vietnamese, you have the Hmong, you have the Laotians, you have the Khmer, the Cambodians, right? All of it coming to America, fleeing the communist victors in our nation. And the United States of America, in order to embrace the myth of being the white savior of people around the world, tend to ignore the fact that the Indo-Chinese refugee came to America because the United States of America came to Indochina first. Something to keep in mind though, before April 1975, that is the official end of the South Vietnamese, South Vietnam as a nation, there was less than 5,000 Vietnamese living in America. Most of them were exchange students and work right. After that, you have more than 300,000 refugees coming within a year. So what does it mean? It means that because of the war you brought to Vietnam and to Laos and to Cambodia, and you left, and people had no other choice but to follow you because of that promise and because you are the one who created the war in their country. Simple as that. However, we don't want to teach that kind of, we don't show that kind of business on film. In film, we showed the United States of America as a white savior, the one who have to bring in even the undesirable subject from the farthest corners of the world, right? One of the film I use in here is the Gran Torino 2008, Clint Eastwood. It's a very damaging film. It's damaging not only to Hmong American community, but it's damaging to the entire Asian American community as a whole, especially the less wealthy, the less educated groups of Asian American community, namely the Southeast Asian Americans. When the Indo-Chinese refugees came to America, we switched our narrative on Asian Americans in film. We do not want to portray them solely the moral communities anymore, right? We portray them in the way that we perceive them. They became the invisible and the subversive enemies of states. These are the people are painful reminders of the war that United States of America lost. So far, that is still the only war we lost. And that is a very humiliating war that we lost, and we didn't want that. Now, these are people who was not respected during the war. We looked at them as the parasite or the burdens of the United States of America. We had to come there to fight because you didn't know how to fight. And because you didn't know how to fight, the enemies won. And now you come into my country, you again become the burden of the nation, or put it very clearly in like Clint Eastwood put in this way, the burden of the white man, right? These subjects are the unassimilable subjects. They are unwanted, they're unassimilable, unassimilable. If you watch this film already, you know exactly what I mean. So this is what we call the return of the yellow peril to the United States of America, replacing the moral minority white, right? We have problems, of course. Asian Americans always have problems with Hollywood, one way or another. I titled this one, The Situation in Hollywood Motion Industries. Unfortunately, we are still probably we're not doing well in Hollywood, or we were not doing well in Hollywood for a long time. We are the least represented groups of people of color in Hollywood, only less than 2% of all Hollywood casting. Americans don't expect to see Asian in film. And when they say Asian in film, it must be stereotype. Otherwise, people feel uncomfortable. Why? Because we have the least roles given to us. We are either the wimpy businessman, or we are the nerdy, the wicked at the school that everybody wants to copy from us during the math time, but nobody wants to hang out with us. You know, growing up in America, Asian boys know that it's very hard for them to get a girlfriend because he's not expected to be a girlfriend, to have a girlfriend. He's not expected to be a man. Or the best we could do is the kid who knows karate or the kung fu master in film, right? Because of that, we are kind of dehumanized, or the least humans. We are humiliated because we are emasculated. We're considered to be asexual, apolitical, unambitious, submissive, we make, and we are domesticated subject. There is the pictures from one of the films that you guys watch. It's a 16 Candles in 1984. It's a kind of coming of age kind of film. And the name of the actors in here, he's a Getty Watanabe, a Japanese American. His name in this film, The Long Duck Dong. Now, growing up in America, you know that if you're Asian American, you have long duck dong. You never get the girl. You are always the wicked. You are always the laughing stock of the entire school. No cool kids are gonna hang out with Asian kids, right? You are smart. You go to Harvard. You can become the doctors, but you are on their own. You are of their own category, a category that people tend not to think about and not to look at you that much. You are the forgotten subject. But we have to be very fair, okay? Not always lost. Asian Americans in film have not always been like that, right? If you look at the 100 years of Asian American legacy in Hollywood film, some of us being very young and not really interested in old films, that's what we call, might not have heard about these names, but these names, once upon a time, were the biggest names in Hollywood, in America, and in many ways, among the biggest names that represented Hollywood culture and industry to the world, right? People like Setsuo Hayakawa. He was the first Hollywood male sex symbol. If you watch his film, you know that in his film, he was the center point, the focal points of all these sexual desire. And then he was women neither in a good way, not in a bad way, right? White women surrounding him. He was a subject of desire. One of the latest films he did is the Japanese officers in The Bridge Over the Kwai. Another person, Anna May Wong, the first globally recognized Chinese American actress. She acted in thousands of films, and she was so big that in technically almost every single nation in the world during her time watched her film. Her name was known, not as a Chinese, but as an American actress, right? And you have other guys like James Segata, who was called as one of the most inspiring Asian Americans of all time. And of course, we have my man, Bruce Lee, right? The most influential martial artist of all time, the founding father of the modern MMA. And he's an American pop culture icon of the 20th century. Not Chinese, Chinese American and American, right? And you have guys like Mako Aguamasu and Jock Takei who's here with us nowadays. But this is not only about the legacy. Asian Americans actually fight back. Since 1980, we already had independent filmmakers making film, and their films were so great that it left such a powerful, profound impact on American, both academic, even the academic, and the American audience, popular audience. You have Wei Guang, who made Time is Missing, difficult film, black and white to see, but one of the best film in terms of Asian American identity. Writer Frank Chint, you have Justin Lin, a more kind of a later generation of Asian American filmmaker who made Better Luck Tomorrow. You have Mira Nair, who made film like The Namesake. She's an Indian American. You have Michael Chang, who made the film Motel, 2005. You have Jean Crajan, who made the film Debut, 2001, that focused on the life struggle of the younger generation of Filipino Americans, right? And then you have a lot of performers who are very famous, not only among the Asian American community, but also for the average American film goer, right? You have Matthew Q, you have Lucy Liu, you have Kerry Tagawa, Philip Reed, Jason Scott Lee, Will Jun Lee, Bobby Lee, a Vietnamese man, Dustin Nguyen, and many, many more that I did not have time to prepare in here. And we are making it. If you look at some of the newest successes of Asian American filmmaking, you will see that the future of Asian Americans in film is very optimistic and very bright. If you look at film made by Taiwanese American Ang Lee, Life of Pi, right? In 2018, everybody went out to see Crazy Rich Asian. It became a topic even in family dinner. If you haven't seen it, you gotta go and see it. Miranit, 2020, directed by Lee Isaac Chung. If you haven't seen this one, you gotta go see it. This is a wonderful film, right? Stephen John, the man who acted as a Korean American in The Walking Dead, he became the first Asian American actor ever being nominated for performance. And then you have one of the new ones, Nomadland, with Chloe Zhao. She also the first woman of color nominated for Best Director. The first woman of color, okay? Not Chinese, not Asian, but woman of color. And we also use other platform nowadays, right? To combat this stereotype, to make film that talk about life, using our actors and actresses to show who we really are as an Asian American. We have entered mainstream Hollywood corporation for a long time. We've been using independent filmmaking, the platform and method, and there are many other newly emerged and powerfully growing platforms, Hulu and Netflix and YouTube. So we are doing things correctly, and let's hope for a better future of Asian American in film. This talk based on the theories by Robert Lee in his book, Orientals, Asian American in Popular Culture. And that's it. I think I can go back. All right. So can we go back now?
Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen. To start off the Q&A, I kind of wanted to ask you to expand on something you said a little earlier in regards to the relationship that Asian communities have that are the relationship between immigrant professionals now and those that came over after the wars that you had mentioned. So the anti-communist professional refugees that you mentioned. How would you describe that dynamic and relationship between the Asian communities?
Can you say it again?
Sure. So, you know, you mentioned earlier in your talk about once the war ended, there was a huge movement of Asian American or Asians over to the US. And as they settle in the US, it was because of their disagreement with the political cultures in their homeland. And so now that we have more globalization where the Asians who left their countries because of the wars are now interacting with their Asians who are still from that home country. Can you describe like what are those dynamics and connections like?
Well, again, the Asian American community is a very complicated one and very complex and very interesting. And the stories of different generations and different Asian Americans, even in the same ethnic groups, because of their different rounds and immigration, it's not only among the Southeast Asian refugees like the Vietnamese, also happen among the Chinese American community, right? The Vietnamese American in this case, like you chat asked, we have always been traditionally thought of as the refugees or descendants of refugee, anti-communist, and those are the kind of rhetoric. But every year, for the last 20 years, we have, since the Vietnam opened the door to the West, we have about 25 to 35,000 Vietnamese receiving green cards and coming to America. And together with them, you have thousands of other professionals who came to America, you know, for graduate study and stay, just like me, right? So there is still the difference between the older generation and the younger generation, right? But we found more and more harmonies in the way that we engage in community activism and then from the professional community, academic community to the community out there. We do a lot of work down in Bel Air, for example. My student and I, you know, the biggest Vietnamese American community in the state of Texas. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from a participant, and I'll read the question for you. While it is good to see Asian representation in the media, what are your thoughts on movies such like Crazy Rich Asian and Bling Empire, which might reinforce problematic stereotypes?
That's correct. Our films are problematic. We cannot deny that. Crazy Rich Asians, at the end of the day, is the Cinderella story. And in order to be sold in America, we really have to bring it back to Malaysia and Singapore to make a film. You know, just so that we have the curiosities of the American audience. But at least our voice is heard, right? Even we have the TV show, Fred of the Boat. It is both loved and hated, right? You can say that it repeats a lot of stereotypes on Asian American families and Asian American identity, but we had very little choice. We have to use the satire on our own stereotype to combat stereotype on it, right? So yes, we still have certain issues in our filmmaking as Asian American filmmaking, but we are getting there. First, you gotta get the film out there. You have to make Americans pay money to go to see you, get them accustomed to seeing our face on the screen, and gradually we're going to improve that.
What do you think the future of filmmaking will be as it relates to introducing viewers to issues around racism, sexism, all the other issues around social justice?
I think that's extremely important. Seeing how the perception of the public change. I'm here with, like I said, on the biggest Asian American, Vietnamese American community in the country. And during the tenure of Donald Trump, the Vietnamese Americans are strongly Republicans. And if you look at the riots at the Capitol, you see a lot of the defunct flag of South Vietnamese flag, the yellow flag, right? They staged very strong support for Trump. But recently, with the rise of anti-Asian and with the media talking about that all the day, a lot of people actually change their mind. I talk to my students and a lot of them talk to their parents. Their parents said, maybe we did the wrong thing, because when you think about that, these are people, they actually were responsible for what we are suffering right now, the fear we have whenever we come out there. So I think films are extremely important to decolonize the mind, right? To enlighten people and to help people see ourselves, our identity clearer, and to know better about the Asian American, about the United States of America as a nation. If film is made right, of course. And we have to do it because nobody's going to do it for us.
We have another question from a viewer. Do you anticipate documentaries and feature films about the experience of Asian Americans during the COVID pandemic? If so, do you think Asian American communities will be able to control those narratives?
I do believe that Asian American people, we're gonna make it. There will be films made on this subject. There won't be cinema and other, media platform to educate people about this difficult time we have, right? And the COVID-19 experience is something that is so important for our community. So I'm pretty sure that the futures of Asian American awareness through film will be kind of made better or better by this incident or the COVID-19 incident that we are living in.
Do you think the Asian communities will be able to control those narratives, what's being presented on the films?
Nobody can control anything alone. The problem, one of the biggest problems we have among people of color, and especially unfortunately, among the Asian American community, that we don't engage enough with solidarities and unities with other group of people of color. So we have our eyes open. We have to realize again and again, and we have to educate our people again and again that this thing did not happen because of one person. This happened when a tradition of the United States of America. And if you let the guard down, you're in trouble. And there is only one way to make things better, is to unify with other people of color, to combat racism. Right.
Following up on what you just said, Dr. Nguyen, what do you think the roles of Asian Americans are in social justice issues right now, in terms of like what's going on with Black Lives Matters, in terms of what's going on with immigration issues? What do you think the Asian community's role should be in those kinds of issues?
We have to take more active roles, of course. Like I said, one of the worst stereotype of Asian American people, that we are the people who always take the back seat. We don't rock the boat. Because listen, Asian Americans, most of the time, we don't call ourselves Americans. Okay, you're Vietnamese. You know that Vietnamese people call white folks tụi Mỹ, the American. They call black folk tụi Mỹ đen, Black Americans. They call Mexican American tụi Mỹ, Mexican. and we don't call ourselves American. We will have to engage more in this. We have to become a part of this country more and more. But I see the futures. Look, Andrew Yang, the guy who wanted to run for US presidency. How cool is that? Even last time we see one of the bodyguards who was closest to President Biden. He was an Asian guy. I mean, small thing like a bodyguard, a secret service man, going and protecting a white American president. That gave it a lot of power. We may not know, but it gave a great impact, in the minds of our children. And we're gonna make it, by having things like that in film. One day we will have a film that portray, POTUS, the president of the United States of America, as an Asian man. We'll get used to that. It will make it.
We have a question from a viewer, and I want to get your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on when the statement says Asian American communities are complicit with white-dominated oppression?
It has long histories. And again, to lump all Asian American people in one umbrella is difficult, right? We are the moral minority because you know what? Actually, some of us are doing very well. The Japanese, the Korean, and the Chinese. I mean, they're richer than white people. They're better educated than white people. But if you look at other groups, let's say the Vietnamese, we technically trail to be high African American and Latino American in almost everything, including education, right? We're doing only better than Khmer and Hmong Americans, sadly enough. So it is very complicated kind of, it's difficult to lump the entire, Asian American ethnic groups into one. But like I said, I mean, if we can solve that problem, if we can find a way to work together, that is when we will limit all the negative things, and we'll take control of what our life, as American citizens.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. And so there's a question about, are there any trailblazing Asian directors or producers who are leading the charge that we should be looking out for or watching their films?
Oh, I just gave you guys the entire list of all the directors. If you haven't seen some of the film, I suggest you just a minute, a second. I have the entire, it's not even a collection, but there are a lot of film in here that I strongly suggest you guys watch. For example, Meera Nair, she's an Indian immigrant in this country. You have Michael Kang, Korean American filmmaking. You have Jin Kae-yoon, he's a Filipino American. And I mean, you have a lot of films out there, and you have a lot of Asian American filmmakers that you should watch. But let's start with some of the biggest guys. How about Ang Lee, Life of Pi? I mean, it's interesting one, right? So we can start with that.
And then we have time for one last question here. Can you explain the flag behind you?
Oh, I teach different Asian American study classes. This is one of the project. One of the things I ask my students to do the final project. They can compose music, hip hop. They can gospel music. They can draw. They can paint. They can write comic books. And this is a project, final project by one of my students. She is a Chinese American, and she called it the new flag of America, in which she has the flag of America combined the Chinese flag, the Japanese flag, the Korean flag, Filipino flag, Indian flag, and Vietnamese flag. I have never seen anything like this before. So with her permission, I keep it wherever I go. I think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for your time. That's all the time we have today. So I'm going to invite Dr. Gooding back on screen here to close us out. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're right. I appreciate you reminding us that this unfortunately is so very timely in the wake of what is happening in terms of current events. And in many ways, it's not new, the violence that's taking place, but the idea that there's perhaps more heightened awareness in terms of the reporting. The bottom line is we still have much work to do. And everything that has been said and shared by Dr. Nguyen about the power of image, I think is so very important, as far as when we look at the paltry, poor numbers, 3%, I believe is what Dr. Nguyen said. I mean, the idea that so many people are operating off of distorted images. And so it's a distortion that's out of proportion and something that we absolutely want to be mindful of moving forward. Speaking of image, I would like to bring in at this point in time somebody who will brighten up your screen. He is, by now, our graduate research assistant, Wonderkind, El Maestro, the mellifluous, the marvelous, Marcellus Perkins. Mr. Perkins.
Dr. G, thank you so much. As he stated, my name is Marcellus Perkins. I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I can because they did. Briefly, I just want to let you all know that we have a podcast, Dr. G and I, co-host called Reconcile This. With this podcast, in which I've just dropped the website link in the chat, we highlight and show our praises to those on the TCU campus who are doing the work. We consider them our champions. So if you're doing the work in reconciliation, in healing, if you're a professor, a faculty, staff member who dedicate themselves each and every day to ensuring that we're building a better TCU campus, we invite them on this show to kind of talk about the things that they do. So we invite you all to just kind of listen. We're on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, and Google, and we hope that we may catch your ear. If not, share with a friend. And we hope that you continue those conversations, the ones we've had today and the ones we have on our podcast, and moving forward as we build towards Reconciliation Day on 4/21. At that time, I'll give the mic back to Dr. G.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And in addition to the link to our podcast, you will also find in the chat box a link to our website if you're curious to continue following this conversation and where it's headed. Our next major stop is April 21st, 2021, as far as our reconciliation training. We have several stops along the way. Feel free to check out the website to see what's happening between now and April 21st. But for sure, we want you to punch your ticket for April 21st, 2021, as that is when we plan to come together so we can move forward together with respect to understanding what reconciliation means to us. And so in closing, I'm very appreciative of all of the individuals who contributed to this successful program. I'm appreciative to everyone who made time for what's important. It's important for us to create spaces like this, to continue educating ourselves, to continue stimulating ourselves and heightening our awareness. Obviously, some of those images were absolutely horrifying to look at. OMG, right? But to think that many of those images were just standard fare, right? That they were entertainment, and in many cases still are, right? I mean, when you talk about Breakfast at Tiffany's and these are considered classics, right? And we didn't even really get into a whole lot this idea of the whole Yellowface piece, where many white actors and actresses over the years have played the parts of Asian Americans. It just really doesn't make any sense. And so this is most recently, what was what's the name? Scarlett Johansson. What was that? Someone help me out. You know what I'm talking about? It was a big time movie. Scarlett Johansson. She played a Japanese character in a. No one's gonna help me out. Gosh. It was all right. Well, it was recent. And so Ghost in the Shell. My man, Dr. Nguyen.
Yeah.
My man. Yep. We go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, Ghost in the Cell, and don't forget the 2015 Aloha. I mean, these are things, the whitewashing and jellyfish. We call it new jellyfish coming back, right? But this time it's not easy. Okay, they got resistance from the Asian American community and many other people. They said, "Stop it! It's not cool." So
Y'all heard it best. Dr. Wen said, it's not cool. Ditto, period. So with that, y'all, as we continue in the name of reconciliation, I just want to let you know that on behalf of the Race and Reconciliation Initiative, I cannot promise what will happen as a result of our inquiries into the history and our past. But I do pledge to you that we're doing the best we can with what we have. Thank you, and until next time.